That night didn't come with a warning. No storm outside the window, no dramatic phone call, no sudden tragedy. Just a quiet apartment, a tired version of me, and a silence so heavy it finally forced me to listen. My name is Andriana Mellon. I'm 28 years old, and I'm sitting here in my living room telling you a story I never thought I'd share because for a long time I didn't even understand it myself. But what I discovered that night changed everything. If you had seen me a year ago in my apartment in Seattle, you probably would have thought I had it all together. I had a stable job in UX design, a clean, Pinterest-worthy apartment, and just enough social media highlights to make it look like my life was full. Weekend brunches, coffee shots, smiling selfies, the kind of life that says, I'm doing okay. But the truth, I wasn't okay. Not even close. Loneliness is strange like that. It doesn't always show up as being alone. Sometimes it shows up as noise against distractions, so you don't have to hear your own thoughts. That was me. Every morning, my alarm would go off at 7 a.m. I'd hit snooze twice, drag myself out of bed, make coffee I didn't even taste, and scroll through my phone while my mind slowly woke up to the same dull routine. Work, emails, meetings, deadlines, come home, eat something quick, watch something mindless, sleep, repeat. I wasn't living, I was just existing. And then there was the breakup. It had been for months, but it still felt fresh. We didn't end in a dramatic explosion. No screaming, no betrayal. Just a quiet realization that something wasn't working anymore. He said, I think we're growing in different directions. I nodded like I understood, like I was mature enough to accept it. But inside, I felt like I was losing the one thing that made everything else feel okay. After he left, the apartment felt different. Bigger, colder, empty in a way that furniture couldn't fix. His mug was still in the cabinet for weeks. His hoodie still hung on the back of my chair. I told myself to throw them out, but I didn't, because letting go of those things meant accepting that he was really gone. So I distracted myself. More work, more scrolling, more pretending. I told my friends I was fine. I told myself I just needed time, but time wasn't fixing anything. It was just stretching the silence. And then came that night. It was a Tuesday. Nothing special. No plans. No expectations. I got home around 8:30 p.m., kicked off my shoes, and dropped my bag by the door. Usually, I'd turn on the TV right away, fill the space with noise, but for some reason I didn't. I walked into the living room, sat down on the floor instead of the couch, and just stayed there. No phone, no music, no distractions, just me. At first, it felt uncomfortable. My mind started racing. Thoughts I'd been avoiding for months came flooding in. Memories, regrets, questions. Why did it end? Did I do something wrong? Why do I feel so empty? Why doesn't anything make me happy anymore? I wanted to get up, turn on the TV, scroll through my phone, anything to escape it. But something inside me whispered stay. So I stayed, and then I broke. Tears came out of nowhere. Not the quiet kind you can hide, but the kind that shakes your entire body. I cried for everything. For the relationship I lost. For the version of me I didn't recognize anymore. For the life I thought I'd have by 28. I cried until my chest hurt and my breathing felt uneven. And in that moment something shifted. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't running. I wasn't numbing my feelings. I was facing them. Fully, honestly, raw. And then it hit me, not like a loud realization, but like a quiet truth finally making its way to the surface. I was just heartbroken. I was disconnected from myself. I had spent so much time trying to be who I thought I was supposed to be, the successful one, the strong one, the one who has it all figured out, that I forgot to ask a simple question. What do I actually want? That question stayed with me. It echoed in the silence of that room. And for the first time, I answered it honestly. I didn't want a perfect life. I didn't want to impress anyone. I didn't want to chase things that didn't make me feel anything. I wanted peace. I wanted to wake up without that heaviness in my chest. I wanted to feel excited about something again, even if it was small. I wanted to stop pretending, and then came the hardest part, realizing that the life I was living wasn't really mine. I had built it based on expectations. What looked good, what made sense, what people would approve of, but not what felt true. That night, sitting on that floor, I made a quiet decision. No announcements, no big plans, just a promise to myself. I'm going to start choosing me. The next morning didn't feel magical. Nothing had changed on the outside, but inside, something was different. I started small. I stopped forcing conversations that drained me. I stopped saying yes when I wanted to say no. I gave myself permission to rest without guilt. I started spending time alone intentionally, not because I had to, but because I wanted to understand myself again. Coffee without my phone, walks without headphones, sitting with my thoughts without running from them. At first, it felt strange, uncomfortable, but slowly it started to feel peaceful. I began journaling, writing things I had never said out loud. My fears, my doubts, my dreams, things I didn't even realize were inside me. Weeks turned into months, and something incredible happened. I started feeling lighter. Not because life became perfect, but because I stopped carrying things that weren't mine. I let go of the need to be liked by everyone. I let go of the pressure to have everything figured out. I let go of the version of me that was trying so hard to be enough for others. And in that space, I found myself. I started doing things I genuinely enjoyed. Not because they were trendy or impressive, but because they made me feel alive. Reading, writing, exploring new places on my own. People around me started noticing. You seem different, they'd say. And they were right. I wasn't pretending anymore. I wasn't performing. I was just me. And the craziest part, my life didn't dramatically change. Same apartment, same city, same job, but everything felt different. Because I was different. That night didn't fix my life, but it gave me something far more valuable: clarity. It showed me that I wasn't broken. I was just disconnected. And once I started reconnecting with myself, everything else began to fall into place. So if you're sitting somewhere right now feeling lost, feeling stuck, feeling like your life doesn't quite make sense, I want you to know something. You don't need a big moment. You don't need everything figured out. Sometimes all it takes is one quiet night. One honest question, one moment where you stop running and start listening, because what you discover in that silence might just change everything. That night, I didn't find all the answers, but I found myself. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. That night didn't end when I stood up from the floor. In a way, it had just begun. The days after were quiet. Not the empty kind of quiet I used to fear, but a different kind that felt like space. Space to breathe. Space to think, space to finally hear myself without all the noise I had been hiding behind. I didn't wake up suddenly healed. I still had moments where everything felt heavy again. Mornings where getting out of bed felt like a task. Nights where memories came back uninvited. But something had changed. This time I didn't run. I started noticing little things about myself, things I had ignored for years. Like how I always rushed through my mornings, never giving myself a moment to just exist. So I slowed down. I made my coffee and actually sat by the window. Watched the light change. Let my thoughts come and go without trying to control them. It sounds small, but for me it was everything. I started questioning my habits. Why did I always say yes when I meant no? Why did I keep relationships that drained me? Why did I tie my worth to how productive I was? For the first time, I wasn't just living my life, I was observing it. And that awareness, it changed everything. A few weeks later, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I cleaned out my apartment. Not just the physical clutter, but the emotional one too. I opened the cabinet and saw his mug. My chest tightened for a second, but instead of avoiding it, I held it in my hands and smiled. Not because I wasn't sad anymore, but because I finally accepted what it was: a chapter. Not my whole story. I put it in a box, and this time I let it go. That was the moment I realized something important. Letting go isn't about forgetting. It's about making peace. As the months passed, my life started to feel lighter. I wasn't chasing happiness anymore. I was creating it slowly, quietly, in my own way. I reconnected with parts of myself I had lost. I started writing again late at night, sitting on the same floor where everything changed. Words came out differently now, more honest, less filtered. I began taking solo trips, nothing big, just short drives, small towns, places where no one knew me, and in those moments I felt free. One evening, about 6 months after that night, I found myself back in the same spot on the living room floor. Same lamp, same quiet room, but everything felt different. I wasn't sitting there because I was broken. I was sitting there because I was at peace. I looked around my apartment. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like mine. Truly mine. And then it hit me. That night, the one I thought was my lowest point was actually the beginning of everything. Because sometimes you have to fall apart to finally see what was never right for you. I used to think I needed someone else to feel complete. Now I understood something deeper. I was never incomplete. I just forgot who I was. That night didn't give me a new life. It gave me something better, a real one. And if there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's this. You don't find yourself in the noise. You don't find yourself in constant distraction. You find yourself in the quiet. In the moments you stop pretending. In the nights you sit with your truth, no matter how uncomfortable it feels. Because that's where clarity lives. That's where healing begins. So if you're going through something right now, if you feel lost, broken, or unsure if you're anywhere, don't rush to fix it. Don't rush to escape it. Sit with it. Listen. Because maybe, just maybe, that thing you're trying so hard to avoid is the very thing that will change your life. That night, I discovered something I had been missing my whole life. Not success. Not love from someone else. Not validation. I discovered myself. And that changed everything.